Hey everybody, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Derling, and I'm so glad for you watching this episode, all my episodes. Thanks for the likes, the follows, the shares. Really appreciate it. On this episode, I'm doing an 8-track one. Enjoy doing these ones, and this one in particular is I've been wanting to do this one because it's an artist that you don't think of as being part of the 8-track era, and yet I've got four to talk about. And that is Bryan Adams. And, you know, one of the biggest artists to come out of the 80s, right? And he's still on tour, selling out big places today. And I think people would be like, Bryan Adams had 8 tracks? Yeah, he did. So I want to get started with a little bit of a backstory. And I don't have it, but it is possible to get a really, really old recording of Bryan Adams when he was about 16, and that would be the Sweeney Todd album called If Wishes Were Horses. Got kind of an interesting cover. And that came out of London Records, I want to say 77, maybe 78. But when he started recording on his own, and this is where it gets really interesting because in my 8-track collection, there are different levels of completeness to some of these catalogs, and I would qualify the Bryan Adams one as complete as far as I know. And what I mean by that is, as big fans will know, Bryan Adams' first album came out in 1980 on A&M Records, was self-titled. Now, 1980 is, 8-tracks were still regularly being manufactured to retail. It wasn't just a record club thing. So there's no reason to think that his first album wouldn't exist on 8-track, and yet in 2024, after years and years of looking, I have not seen any evidence of it existing in any form. I mean, this is what it looks like. This is an old cassette of it. And like I said, there's no reason why this wouldn't exist on 8-track, but I've never seen it. So there should be a Canadian retail version, definitely a Canadian one, a US one, and a US and Canadian Columbia House version, and a US RCA Music Service version. So that's 5 potential versions of the first Bryan Adams album on 8-track that could exist, and I don't know of any. Maybe someday it'll turn up. Now, I know this album was not successful. It never ever certified, no matter how many albums he sold in the future. I don't think it ever certified. Maybe it did in Canada, but you just think after a while it would have come out. And I don't see any reason why the record label said, we're not going to put this out on 8-track, because if it was their standard to put it out on all these formats at the time, there's no reason to think that they wouldn't have. Yet I can't say it exists because I've never seen it. So that's a big question mark. So for now, I'm going to say there's no 8-track of it, but I could easily be proven wrong as soon as I finish posting this. That's just how it goes sometimes. But what I do know is that I've got more to talk about 8-tracks. These are all US Columbia House versions. 1981, Bryan Adams' second album, You Want It, You Got It. So as was the case, a lot of times Columbia House put the blue border around everything. And that's what it looks like on the side. You'll see where it says CRC. And here is the back. Now, 1981, it was still pretty common practice to put out 8-tracks to retail, but this is the only copy of this I've ever seen. So this might be an RCO. It could very well be an RCO. The next ones I'm going to show are all strictly RCO for sure. His breakthrough album, 1983, Cuts Like a Knife. Again, this is a Columbia House version, US. And like the record, it's got this little atom design. Get it? Adams. I've always been a little suspect of this one because you can clearly see there's something else underneath that sticker. I don't know. Maybe I might have got ripped off on this one. I don't have a player to test them with. Oddly enough, probably one of the easiest ones to find is from '84 because it was his biggest album. That would be Reckless. This one's got a little bit of bubbling on it, a little wear and tear, but obviously a US Columbia House as well. Song titles are all mixed up. And finally, this is the rarest one, other than, you know, the mythical unicorn that is the first album. But this is the rarest one that I know exists. Very glad to add this to my collection. 1987, Into the Fire. This is a sealed copy, and this is when they were using the cream-colored tapes, which I kind of like. I have a few that are like this. But yeah, 1987 was the second to last year that any of these were made. The song titles are totally out of order on here too, but yeah, a lot of, you know, maybe you might be surprised to see this one on 8-track, but yeah, here it is. And I can say definitively that's the last Bryan Adams 8-track, because his next album, Waking Up the Neighbors, was 1991. No way that's on 8-track. Now, if you're a diehard fan, you will say, but he put out Live, Live, Live in 1988. Yes, he did, and there are some 8-tracks that were made in 1988. That album was only released in Europe until 1994, so that wouldn't exist on 8-track either. Now, there might be some various artist compilations that have some of his songs, but as far as his albums under his name, I think that's it, you know. I would love to know if his first album exists, but I don't think it does, you know. And until I see it, I'm not going to say that it exists. And, you know, this gets into the whole reason that I did this book, Unspooled, an adventure in 8-tracks, because I wanted to document these 80s record club only 8-tracks. And see, I honestly can't remember, but did I include, yeah, You Want It, You Got It, I put in the RCOs. If I should discover that there's a retail one, I'll have to take that out for future versions. As a matter of fact, I do feature the Reckless 8-track in here. Yeah, right here. When I demonstrate, you know, what these look like, the fact that all of these Columbia House RCOs, no matter what the originating label was, were all made to look the same. So here you have Reckless on A&M Records and Night Ranger 7 Wishes on MC8, that they look completely the same as the Columbia House 8-tracks. So there you go. Anybody out there have some Bryan Adams 8-tracks? I know that he has signed one from the stage. I've seen that. That's pretty cool. So yeah, it's you know, one of those artists that you don't think of as having 8-tracks, and yet they do. And yeah, I've got the link to order Unspooled and any of my books down below. And when you purchase my books, you're supporting the channel. Really appreciate that. And I love doing these 8-track episodes. Got a few more in the can to show you. And you know, the Kansas Deep Dive continues. Thank you for the support of that book too. Thank you for the support of the channel. I really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed this one. It's a short one, but there wasn't much to talk about. But what there was pretty significant, I think. Thanks for watching Tim's Vinyl Confessions, and we'll see you all later.